Welcome, soul driven writers, to the Soul Writer Podcast. This podcast is designed for writers like you who have a burning desire to share their story and message with the world and make the biggest impact possible. I'm your host, Lauren Eckhart, bestselling author, ghostwriter, book coach, and the CEO of Burning Soul Collective. Here at the Soul Writer Podcast, we believe in the power of vulnerability and authenticity. Our mission is to inspire and empower you to write from the depths of your soul by showcasing other authors who have done exactly that. Through their journeys, you'll discover what it takes to write a book that truly resonates with readers and learn how you can embrace your own unique voice to live the writer's life that you've always imagined. So, gather your favorite writing tools, cozy up in your favorite spot, and let's explore the world of soul-driven writing together. This is the Soul Writer Podcast, where your passion meets purpose and the world awaits the magic that only you can create. Welcome to the journey. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Soul Writer Podcast. Today, I want to talk about the objections that you might face when people find out that you are writing your memoir. Now, this is something that I have seen come up time and time again, and I just had my own experience with it. I did not take my typical advice. So, I want to talk to you a little bit because if you've thought about sharing your story, not only are you going to face objections internally, but you're also going to face them externally. And I've already done a previous podcast episode on how to tackle some of those objections internally, but I really want to hit on today what happens when you start hearing from people while you're in process of writing your memoir and you start to feel the energy being sucked out of the process. Well, number one, I always advise my clients to not share with anyone that you are writing your memoir until your memoir is officially written. And the reason why is because it is easy to have the energy that should be going into your memoir tapped into, drained when other people find out that you are writing your memoir because they'll start asking questions, they'll start wanting to pry, and you will also have situations when people are worried that you are going to talk about them in this book and it might be in a negative light. And so once you start getting those questions, those comments, you'll start feeling deflated. So, like I said, I did not take my own advice. And just by happenstance, I was talking to someone who has played a fairly significant role in my life. And we were talking about something totally different. And I was like, I just wrote about that for my memoir. And the moment the words were out of my mouth, I kind of tensed up because I did not mean to say that. We were just in the middle of the conversation and it just slipped out. And I could see just kind of a pause, a hesitation. And kept talking about things, but I could see it. I could feel the change in the air, and I could see just kind of her mind going, memoir. And she asked a couple of other questions, but then we got off topic to, something completely different. Well, fast forward a week later, and I receive a letter in the mail from this person pretty much stating why I should not write this memoir. And I definitely should not include any stories regarding this person or like a number of other people that are connected with us in this book. And as I read it, I was like, yep, this is why I always advise people not to say that you're writing a memoir or tell, especially people who've played a significant role in your life until after the memoir is completed. Because this letter was laced in fear and worry about things that she didn't know. We didn't even talk about specifics exactly of what I was writing about, but it was like all of a sudden her thoughts escalated into all of the potential things that I could write about and how dangerous it could be. And so I was reading through the letter and I didn't have any sort of like emotional response. I was just kind of like, okay, I think maybe a part of me expected it. And again, like I said, I know it's a normal reaction and I'm fully aware of it. And so I'm reading through it and I'm like, okay, that none of that makes sense, but okay, I'm reading her words. So anyway, then we get on a phone call to discuss it because I let this person know that I received the letter and you know, uh, responding to a couple of the things that were brought up in that. And so number one, y'all, I didn't have an emotional response to it. I was not hurt. I did not feel attacked because again, I expected there to be some sort of resistance once people knew. And whether that was going to happen in the pre-writing stage or once it got closer to publishing or post-publishing, it was bound to come out at some point. And I'm fully aware of this. Number two, I did not have an emotional response because I know I'm meant to write this book. I know that I am meant to share my story. And there is no doubt in me whatsoever. I feel very convicted of it. I feel very called to do so. And from working with so many people on sharing their stories, writing their books, weaving in their personal stories, the one thing that I know holds true is that their desire to suddenly share it comes from a place that is so much deeper than what we can fully recognize in our human conscious levels, because it has more to do with the other people that the story is meant for and not always just for us releasing it. And so I believe when we get these callings to write the story, to share our stories, there's a reason behind it. And I am such an advocate for that, that is why feeling that calling on my own story, that is why I didn't waver. I know nothing is going to prevent me from sharing it. I know I will not have any regrets at all for sharing my story because I'm also being really careful and smart in my delivery of it, which we can talk more about here in a bit as well. So, as we were having this discussion, there are just a couple of things that this person brought up that there's a good chance that you might face as well. So, I want to talk through those. Number one, again, there's this worry and concern about certain things that certain stories would be shared that portrayed these people in an unfair way because it was only one side of the story. And I said, I completely understand that fear. But number one, you don't even know what stories I'm sharing yet. So it's a fear that exists for no reason. And then number two, it is all about the delivery of how the stories are told. And I am wise enough to know the right way to do that because I coach people on it all the time. And they're like, yeah, but I've read this memoir and this memoir and this memoir. I just think, wow, the world has an awful view on all of these people that the author was talking about because it's just the author's perspective. And I'm like, again, it comes down to the delivery. Just because other people might have written it like that doesn't mean that I'm going to write mine like that. But here's the thing, period. When we are going through our life journeys, when we are having the experiences that we have, those interactions with other people that are impacting us, that are shaping the way we experience the world, how we're feeling, our next step from one decision to another, all we know at that point is our perspective. We are not stopping in those moments and going, okay, wait, why is this person interacting with me in this way? What is their backstory? Okay, now I understand them. So let's just go on with our path, right? That doesn't happen. Sure, in hindsight, we tend to reflect back. We tend to understand some of those people that we've had earlier interactions with more because we know more of their backstory. But in those moments when we are being impacted, we don't know their backstory. So this person's argument was, you like, if you're going to portray these stories, you have to make sure that they understand the complexities of the people that you are writing about. And I'm like, but that's not what memoirs are about. It's not about accounting for all of the life journeys, all of the histories behind every single person that you are mentioning in your story. Number one, that is not a memoir. It's about the person, the author's perspective, how they're going through the situations and how it's impacting them. And then, like I said, number two, when we go through it, we don't know, right? So it honestly doesn't matter in those moments what their backstory is. So it doesn't make sense to also put that into the book because it's a hindsight element more than it is in the moment when you are having that impact. So that was an awareness that I want to bring because that is just something for y'all to think in general too about a reason that other people have to be able to understand. It is those in the moment interactions and what you learn from. And that is something else I want to point out. I have had a couple of clients throughout the years where when they have started writing their memoir, they are still in the middle of feeling very emotional towards certain experiences or certain events or certain people. And you can see that emotion coming through. If you have not had time to properly be able to shift your perspective on what happened in your life, if you have not had that time to fully heal, to have it be a learning situation for you with whatever that might look like, y'all, that is the point of a memoir in so many ways, to show that growth, to show the development throughout time. So if you have not experienced that yet with certain interactions with people or experiences or events in your life, those probably should not be included in your memoir because a memoir should show that growth and that development, the learning that happens throughout our human experiences. So it's really, really important. And in this situation, the stories that were being referenced that this person was concerned about were in my past. And I have had plenty of time to essentially reframe the narrative as I've gone through my own healing journey. And then not only that, I am almost 40 years old. So the way I am approaching this is a lot different than how I would have being, my 20s and even early 30s. So that is another stance for me is I feel matured, healed enough, and aware enough of the delivery that I am not even worried about that aspect of it because it is about reframing things in the correct way. But it's also about showcasing how you were impacted because especially, we all know certain people in our life, certain experiences, certain things. It's not always the immediate change in us that we want to talk about. Usually it's those that last a really, really long time and affect us in multiple ways. Another point that this person brought up was that there are so many inspirational books, so many memoirs, so many self-help books. Why does there need to be another? Why do you need to share your story when there's plenty out there? And my simple response was, why not? Every single one of us connects with different stories for a reason. Every single one of us has different experiences that we relate to other people on because of the shared emotions or the way it's delivered or just having that soulful connection with a different person. There could be a billion stories out there, and I'm always going to say this world needs more. So do not let anyone say there's plenty. Why would you want to add yours to the mix? Y'all, what many people don't understand who aren't comfortable sharing their story is that it's not about just being another book in the market. That's not what this is about. This is about the opportunity to share your story, to have deeper connections, to help other people, to leave a part of yourself behind that could make a difference, part of your legacy. It's not just about being another book in the market. The majority of the time, with anyone sharing their story and willing to put themselves out there so courageously, so openly, I know it has more to do with just being another book in the market. But if someone has never thought of that for themselves with the power of sharing their story, they might not understand that in the same way. So you have to hold true to what you know is true and the importance of this. The other aspect that got brought up, there was a lot brought up throughout the letter and the short conversation, is that by me wanting to share certain elements of my story, that it was selfish, that I was being selfish. And I was like, that's interesting because you are saying it's selfish for me to want to share my story, but yet I could easily flip that and say that you're being selfish for me to um, not want me to share my story. So, sure, it could go either way. Maybe I am being selfish by wanting to share these stories, but maybe you're being selfish by asking me not to, especially when you don't even know what those stories are actually about. So, again, I could see it going either way. But it's my life story. And I think it's really strange that you want to ask me to not share about my life. I was like, I do it on podcast interviews all the time, other people's podcasts. If they ask me a question about my life, I'm going to answer because that is me. And that it has all to do with who I am today. And I have done so much work on myself over the past 3 years while I've been working on healing myself, on learning to finally love myself, on finally understanding that I am worthy of love, of understanding, of good things. All the same time as I've been going on this journey to learn how to love myself, I've also been helping other people learn how to love themselves through the honoring of their own life journey. And for me to love myself today, it takes honoring every single thing that I've gone through in my life that has led me to who I am today. The good, the bad, the things I wish never happened, the things that did happen that were totally unexpected, the things that I wished for that did take place, all of those, every single element, every single small interaction, every single big interaction, every single event has carved me, has shaped me in some way or another, and has helped me become who I am today. And for me to love that person and to come to this point where I do love this person, I am honoring everything in my life journey that brought me here today. So I'm not going to shy away from it. Not there's nothing that I have shame for anymore because I have healed that part in order again to love myself fully and completely today. And people may not understand that, and that is fine. Again, there's different ways of looking at things, the way different ways that people feel about this. And this person even said, "I guess I'm just way more private. I don't see why you need to share those things." And I'm like, "That's fine if you don't see it for yourself. If you've never witnessed what I have the opportunity to witness on a semi-regular basis as people share pieces of their life journey that move, inspire, empower other people, that bring us closer together, that make us feel that we have relationships, deep relationships with other people because we bond on levels that most of the world doesn't get because they're not having those same conversations. They're not sharing those same life stories with each other. If I remain as locked up as what I was for the majority of my life would not be as fulfilled as what it is today because of those connections I've been able to build with other people. And the only way I've been able to build those connections with other people is by being vulnerable, by being authentic, by sharing all my stories, the good and the bad, and hearing theirs, and us finding that common ground that goes way beneath the surface. If I never did that, like most of my life, I stayed closed up and was so scared to talk about my life, was so scared to admit so much of it, was so scared for people to see that side of me, I would still be the girl that I was the majority of my life, where I did not love myself. I did not think I was worthy of anything. So thank God there are people willing to open up and share all of those bits of their lives because it's made a difference for me. And I'm hoping to God that I can continue to help other people do the same thing because it is part of my why. And it is, again, why I can stand so strongly and say, I want to write this story and I want to share it with the world. And the other bit that they asked towards the end was, and they asked it 3 different times, and they refused to hear my answer until I think finally the 3rd time it kicked in, and that was, "I'm just asking you, please don't hurt me, please don't hurt this person, please don't hurt this other person. And 3 different times I had to respond the same way. I will not make that promise. I will not make that promise because I cannot move forward in this or anything that I say or do if all I'm concerned about is other people's response and reaction to what I say and what I do. If that's what I cared about, if that was my guide behind everything, which again it was for the majority of my life, which is why I didn't say and do the majority of the things that I wanted to say and do, then nothing would happen. Nothing amazing in my life would happen. And also, I know that there are things that I did that has nothing to do with anyone, but once people hear it, especially people who have played a somewhat significant role in my life at some point or another, they're probably going to feel a little hurt that I made those decisions. And I'm not going to share them on fear that it could hurt people. Because again, it made me who I am today, and that is the whole point of sharing this. Y'all, if you have thought about writing your memoir, you are going to have people, like I said, either early on, during publishing, post publishing, who will try to break you down for being bold enough to share your story. If you haven't yet and you're in the middle of this, you need to take the time to be 100% confident in why you are writing your story, why you want to share it with the world, and knowing that everything you share is what you feel comfortable sharing. Because once it's published, you can't take it back. And you cannot control other people's reactions or responses to your story. So you have to know why it is important to you and take the time because people are going to throw in the obstacles, especially if they find out in the middle of you writing it, to try to hold you back from it because they are scared of it. They are scared. And the biggest thing, and again, I've already done an early episode on this, but just to go back to some of the big tips of things that I want you to keep in mind is that keep emotions out of it, honestly. Like when you're writing about your interactions with other people that could come back and possibly bite you in the butt, for example, state facts, the facts from your perception of what was happening. Don't try to paint them as a bad guy. Don't try to, throw them under the bus. It's not about that. It's about, again, they're the facts of what happened. And you can talk then about how seeing those things or having those interactions, how it then affected you on a long-term basis. You also, of course, want to make sure that if there is any sort of facts or anything that could severely hurt someone else, that you are taking the proper steps to protect yourself, to protect them. So, if you're looking at violation of privacy, many people, like this person, fear that their private lives, the things that have happened, might become public. And, even if they might have consented, it doesn't mean that once it's out that they are comfortable with sharing it. There's also the fear of misrepresentation, again, that came up. There's a fear that their actions, words, or character might be misrepresented or interpreted differently than what they intended. There's also the fear of unresolved issues being brought up, especially if there, are past conflicts or sensitive issues that haven't been resolved. They might worry that your memoir could bring these back into focus, causing further stress or disagreement. Or again, what I was seeing in this interaction, potential regret surfacing, potential regret on some of the decisions, things that took place. Legal repercussions are very real. So again, just making sure that things aren't coming across as harmful or, again, painting people in the wrong light or giving readers an assumption about somebody that isn't true. And then, of course, how it could always impact relationships. The best thing that I can always suggest doing is keeping open communication, have open and honest discussions about your intentions, like I did. Said as soon as I got the letter, we hopped on a call to be able to iron it out. I can't say that they came to the end agreeing with me, but at least I was being very open and honest with them about my intentions behind it and that it wasn't to attack anyone. Um, and it is still being sensitive to their concerns to try to ease some of those fears. Um, Consent is good whenever possible. If you can obtain their consent about sharing a part of their story, it's always good to be able to do, because it can reduce potential conflict. It can ensure that respect more for personal boundaries. Having empathy, right? Writing with compassion and understanding, trying to see your experiences from not just your perspective but other people's perspective will help you in crafting the right language when you are writing these pieces. Again, that's why it's so important to have that hindsight element, because it gives you a chance to process. It gives you a chance to see things from different angles. You could also look at changing identifying details to protect the identities of those involved. And then it's always good to possibly seek legal advice if there are areas that you are really concerned about. Just to have that extra security. I always say it's worth it. But above all, it's really making that journey of self-awareness, letting people know that so much of this is subjective and it is your interpretation of your life journey, and it may not always align with other people's perspectives. So, hopefully, those are just a few things to keep in mind, a few tips. But really, the purpose of this episode, y'all, is to give you the awareness, the writing a book part, especially when it involves such an intimate, personal bit of your life isn't always rainbow and sunshines, right? I mean, like it's easy to dream about the impact and the how it's going to inspire and help so many people, but there can be a challenging part. And that is why you need to know your reason behind writing this and stay true, because if the waters get choppy, you have to know why you're doing this and you have to be proud of a book that is going to outlast your time here in this world and know it's exactly what you wanted to share with the world. Thank you so much for tuning in to another inspiring episode of the Soul Writer Podcast. I hope today's conversation has ignited a newfound passion and determination in you to write from a place of vulnerability, authenticity, and soul. Remember, your story has the power to make a significant impact in the world. And by sharing your unique voice, you're contributing to the tapestry of human experience. So go forth, embrace your soul-driven purpose, and let your words transform the lives of your readers. Be sure to subscribe to the Soul Writer Podcast so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes, where we'll continue to share valuable insights and inspiring stories from fellow authors. You can also join our community on social media to connect with like-minded writers and share your own journey by looking at Burning Soul Collective. Until next time, keep shining your light, and remember, your story matters. Your words have power, and the world needs the magic that only you can create. This is the Soul Writer Podcast, signing off for now. Right on, my friends.